Mars is the red planet, named after the Roman god of war. A symbol of bloodshed, Mars may turn its reputation around by becoming a home for humanity in the future. With lots of talk and speculation on colonization, Mars is an exciting prospect. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. There are plenty of robotic missions there right now, and some planned for the near future. Let's start with ESA's series of ExoMars missions. The ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter is a mission investigating the trace gases in the Martian atmosphere. These tiny portions of gas in an atmosphere can tell a lot about biological or geological processes. By finding gases that are mostly created by living things and decay quickly over time, this probe would support the idea of life on Mars. This mission also includes a lander, which will test out if the satellite can act as a communications device for a future ExoMars mission. Said mission is the ExoMars 2020 rover. This rover will continue to study Mars in search for life. While the current Mars rovers are faring fine, the technology is constantly updating on Earth, so a continuous stream of new rovers isn't unwarranted. Next, we move on to ISRO's Mars Orbiter mission. This mission, sent to Mars in 2014, was meant to allow India to develop the technologies required for interplanetary travel. Also, while it was there, it made some scientific observations as well. These include the study of the Martian surface, the makeup of its atmosphere, and the processes of Mars's upper atmosphere. Now we move on to two NASA rovers, Opportunity and Curiosity. Opportunity was launched in 2003 and was only expected to complete a mission of 90 days due to dust covering its solar panels. Yet because of winds clearing the panels of dust, this mission has been going on for 15 years and is still going. Finding the rocks hematite and gypsum in its samples, rocks that only form in water, Opportunity provided evidence that Mars had water at some point. And not just a quick splash of water, but a long period of water, a long enough period to form rocks. On top of this, Opportunity discovered evidence of past environments that were warm and wet, perfect for life. The Curiosity rover came along later, launching in 2011 and arriving on Mars in 2012. This rover, being designed 8 years after Opportunity, was able to incorporate slightly more advanced technologies. Opportunity still works well on its own, but Curiosity with its new tools is a welcome addition. Recently, Curiosity added to the body of evidence for microbial life on Mars by discovering organic compounds in the Martian sediment as well as observing the shifting of methane levels in its atmosphere. This isn't 100% conclusive of life because organic compounds can be created from inorganic processes. Organic just means containing carbon, which can describe a lot of compounds. These organic compounds were fairly complex and indicative of life, but until a living organism or a fossil is observed, we can't have 100% certainty. On top of this, Curiosity is measuring the amount of radiation it is receiving so that NASA knows exactly how much shielding future astronauts will need to stay safe on a trip there. Next, we move on to NASA's InSight lander, which arrived on Mars a little less than a month ago. This lander was placed in Elysium Planitia, a relatively boring spot when it comes to geology. The reason for this is that the point of the mission isn't geology, it's studying the interior of the planet. To do that, the lander must be able to drill into the planet easily. This is the first probe studying the interior of the planet rather than the features of its surface, and it plans to be very extensive. First, InSight has a seismometer observing the shaking resulting from Mars quakes and meteorite impacts. Observing the ways these shock waves hit the seismometer, InSight will be able to deduce exactly how the interior of Mars is structured. Right now, we have a basic idea based on the mass of Mars and the fact that it is a terrestrial planet that involves a small core, a dormant mantle, and a solid crust. InSight will also employ a thermal probe to observe if Mars's interior produces heat like Earth's. The decay of radioactive elements inside of Earth produces heat and makes it much hotter than the ever-escaping heat from the formation of the solar system has. By observing the temperature of Mars and by testing how it reacts to added heat, InSight can determine how active the Martian core is. Next, we move on to NASA's Mars 2020 rover. This rover looks very exciting. It will take samples of the Martian surface in search for life, not merely conditions that support life. These samples will be stowed on the Martian surface for a future mission to come and pick them up and bring them back to Earth. The tools that can be sent in a 1-ton rover just don't cut it. Labs on Earth have far more extensive tools to better study these samples. On top of this, the rover will study methods of obtaining resources that humans will need to survive on Mars. These include a method to extract oxygen from the Martian air and a search for underground aquifers as a supply of water. This mission will launch in the summer of 2020, so get ready for it. Finally, we arrive at SpaceX and its plan for Mars. Here, SpaceX is very optimistic. In 2022, they say that they will send a cargo mission to Mars using 2 of their BFR rockets. According to their website, the objectives of the first mission will be to confirm water resources, identify hazards, and put in place initial power, mining, and life support infrastructure. Once this is ready, the second mission will launch 2 years later with 2 more cargo ships and 2 ships filled with people. These ships have 40 cabins each, but it isn't necessary for only one person to inhabit each cabin. Couples could live in one cabin, or they could be filled with many bunks like military vessels. Either way, 100 to a few hundred people may go on this first mission. The main goal of this mission will be to set up a fuel depot and a self-sustaining city on Mars, meaning that many people in this first crew, as well as later crews, will stay on Mars without returning to Earth. The exciting prospects for Mars are finding life and making life. Figuring out if we are alone in the universe or if microbes and possibly more complex life can pop up anywhere is an important discovery. Also, living in a city on Mars is an important step for humanity to take.